Good morning. Therese sent me a whole slew of notable biographies of Black women who stood out in their time, each one in a different field. One that stood out to me was one of the earliest ones, a girl born into slavery in upstate New York, and she had never learned to read or write, yet she went on to become a widely quoted activist. She even met with and talked to President Abraham Lincoln. And almost 100 years before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, a woman known as Sojourner Truth defied the status quo by riding streetcars designated for whites in Washington, D.C. in the mid-1860s. This girl was born in 1797 in upstate New York. Her name was Isabella Baumfree, and she later took on the name of Sojourner Truth. In her memoirs, she said, quote, "The Lord gave me the name Sojourner because I was to travel up and down the land, showing the people their sins and being a sign unto them. Afterwards, I told the Lord I wanted another name, 'cause everybody else had two names, and the Lord gave me Truth, because I was to declare the truth to the people." As a young slave girl, she was sold several times. At age 18 or so, she fell in love with another slave, Robert, who belonged to a neighboring farm, and they had a daughter. But Robert's owner did not approve of their relationship because the children would be considered the property of the mother's owner. So she never saw Robert after that. In 1817, her owner compelled Isabel to marry an older enslaved person named Thomas. They had 3 children, a son Peter and 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Sophia. 10 years later, the state of New York emancipated all enslaved people. Her owner had promised to free her in 1826, a year before, just a few months before emancipation. But when the time came, he claimed he never made that promise. So she walked out, carrying her infant daughter. She did not run and she did not hide. She sought shelter in a neighbor's house who bought out the last months of her slave status. Soon after, she learned that her son Peter had been sold off to a man in Alabama. She took the issue to court and eventually secured Peter's return. This case was one of the first in which a Black woman successfully challenged a white man in court. She became an influential abolitionist. She stood up for women's rights and universal suffrage, and was an outspoken opponent of capital punishment. She tried to secure federal land grants for former slaves, thinking that property would provide them with stability, but she was unable to sway Congress. The reason we have a good amount of information about her life, is because she later dictated her memories to a friend who knew how to read and write. She said, "I tell you, I can't read a book," she said, "but I can read people." She died at age 86 in Battle Creek, Michigan. One of her most famous quotes was, "I am not going to die. I am going home like a shooting star." Sojourner Truth was truly ahead of her time.